Andy, we met yesterday
Yeah.
and had a very exciting conversation. I mean, at least to me, I went away thinking it was almost difficult to sleep. That the conversation between all of us at that STEM center, and we're talking in a box that is walls that are being moved, construction is about to happen. The space is not a space yet. Yet I got the sense that you walked away feeling like there was something there. So I wanted to kind of get your first impressions of the project, and kind of see where it goes, and then start to unpack a little bit about what you're doing with First Robotics, kind of a background of the organization, and potential synergies or promise that you see in that relationship.
I would love to continue the conversation. It was really exciting to see so many common areas of focus and realization of this moment in time, right? Things
Yeah.
that we've known about education for a long time and the challenges of our current model and the gaps that it's leaving in helping prepare kids and youth to thrive. But I think there's a new level of urgency right now that's driven by a few things that are leading a lot of different people from different sectors, which was one of the things that was interesting for me, was to see these common threads of folks that have such expertise and passion in different areas, but coming to this common conclusion and knowledge of, we need to be developing environments differently. We need to be developing experiences differently for kids to both create that spark, but then one of the things that I really love about the vision for Austin's STEM Center is that once that spark is created, to have a depth of programming or experiences where we can add fuel to that fire, but based on what interests the student, right? We need to make learning more student centric and student led, instead of assuming that, we're going to deliver learning at the educator's precise dose and interval and moment. And so, yes, I left just really energized by the vision for the space and the opportunity it has for our community here in Austin.
Nice. I learned about, well, I knew of First Robotics for a long time, but my background's been building maker spaces in schools. And so I was aware of it, but I think it was probably about 90 days ago that I was first really exposed to it. And I went down to a high school here, Lhasa High School, and sat in a corner and just observed, and my jaw dropped. I saw groups of students um, engaged and leading, and not everything that I expected students to be building and driving robots. Check. Saw students coding, trying to figure out these algorithms. Check. I saw students working then on marketing for the team, and I hadn't thought about that. I saw a group of students working on the summer camp that was their fundraiser to fund their team for the entire year. But the other thing that I saw was super interesting to me. And then in our conversation yesterday, I think both Evan, Danny, myself, and you saw this value of interesting adults working with students or working adjacent to students, is that mentor role, which I perceived, and please tell me if I'm getting this wrong, but what I perceived at LASA was on the continuum of a teacher-led lesson done at the teacher's, dosage of knowledge at this time. We can't go further now. This is what we're doing. To all the way to like Montessori, which is wherever you end up, you end up. Um, I see the mentor role where the adults were not opinion free. They were bringing knowledge. They had an opinion. There was two-way conversation, but it was extremely dynamic. And sometimes it was in the mode of asking a series of questions, and you could tell the adult explicitly wanted the student to arrive here. Sometimes it was the adult saying, well, in our marketplace of ideas, there's this tool or this technique here. Let me show this to you. But they were operating a little more in a middle ground. Is that your perception of kind of the mentor and team member kind of a relationship?
It is. It's an important part of FIRST Robotics, and I think it's part of a larger evolution and recognition that learning can and shouldn't just happen between 9 and 3 in the same four walls of one building, and you have one educator, maybe there's four educators, and that's who teaches you. And the reality is, we need to be preparing students, but all of us to learn. And that means who our educators are going to be, and even what the definition of an educator is needs to evolve and grow. And the opportunity for mentors, for individuals who have developed skills and aptitudes and capabilities and life lessons in different areas to contribute to the growth and the development of our young people in really meaningful environments where the students are engaged and the students are seeking knowledge and
Right.
support is a fundamental shift and a really valuable and critical one. That the idea of FIRST Robotics, where we take kind of a sporting model or concept where we've known coaches play a really important role in sports, and apply that to a sport where, one of my favorite quotes from our incredible founder Dean Kamen
Hmm.
is that FIRST Robotics is the only sport where everyone can go pro, and that's because in that environment you are learning these skills that are going to be applied to any role that you take on in this dramatically, dynamically changing world that
Right.
kids are growing up in.
It seems like that there's two stages. That there's or a pre-stage, which is getting the student to want to learn and seek out the information, and either walking up to the adult or walking up to the resource or initiating a conversation with peers. Then, when they have that, um, I guess that's a sense of agency plus motivation, right? Um, then you're cooking with gas, so to speak. Then there's this next level. Um, what have you observed in your experiences as far as getting a generalized student body to kind of that first, maybe like a pre-stage, turning those things on, the motivation plus agency, or the challenges around that?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges that we have as mentors or parents or teachers or individuals that want to play this role, is that we try and step in too quickly and answer a question
Yeah.
or send a student or a learner in a direction. And part of what we need to do in this new system or new model is actually help the educator, help the parent, help the mentor, help the coach understand that their role isn't to answer all of the questions, to have all of the knowledge, but to create an environment where students feel seen, where, we have to start with a sense of belonging. They feel safe, they feel trusted, but now they feel open to make mistakes
Hmm.
and to explore and to fail. And not only that that is okay, but we need to embrace that that is a critical
Right.
part of learning, which is exactly opposite of what our traditional learning environments produce. And so I think a huge phase one is creating an environment and a space where that form of tinkering, of learning, of iterating, embracing failure, and then the adults' role in modeling that,
Right.
which is hard for us to do because we don't like to fail because our
Hmm.
education system told us that that's the
Yep.
wrong thing to do. And to find ways then to not just have that happen in one location, but to scale that into more sustainable models and programs, which is what I think is so exciting about a program like First Robotics
Right.
is, there's a lot of magical learning environments that are out there.
Hmm.
But how do you replicate them? How do you scale them without becoming too formulaic, without becoming so prescriptive
Yeah.
that you lose the openness? It's a really
Just those core,
challenging tension.
yeah, those core values. Um, One acronym that I used at a couple schools, DNR, do not rescue,
Yeah.
right? And talking to the parents and the teachers about that. Inside of a school makerspace, I think a school makerspace at that final evolution is successful when teachers are taking tools into the classroom, like stuff starts disappearing out of a makerspace. Giddy up, we're having the right problems, right?
Yeah.
But when I would start bringing projects into the classroom, and the teacher and I might have collaborated to make a thing to talk about history, but we're building something, and we would use simple hand tools in the classroom. One of the greatest challenges that I've had is we have an idea. It is prescriptive. This is the thing that I want you to make. There are constraints on it. And then the students learning how to use a tool for their first time, and they're either punching or cutting, and then you would see, so you step back a little bit, and then you'd see a teacher swoop in, take the tool from the student's hands, no, like this,
That's right.
because the the adult is given the task, and they perceive their task, that everybody completes their own task,
Yeah.
and that's difficult. Um,
And the adult has been conditioned that they need to be the expert. They need to have the answers. And,
yeah,
the traditional model of a teacher being sage on the stage and one-way communication. And it's never been the case, but now it's so far from what we need. And we look at access to expertise and information and resources and ways you can leverage AI and
hmm,
really impactful opportunities. The adult, the mentor, plays a very different role, which, to your point, isn't taking the tool and showing them how to do it, but letting them learn through iteration and trial and mistake, and then prompting with questions.
yeah,
Why do you think that didn't work? And what could we do differently?
yeah,
Right. I think having the right questions at those moments is the essential piece in a lot of circumstances.
yeah. At that same high school where I first encountered first for the first time, um, the art teacher there became the robotics coach. And what I saw in talking with her, the way she teaches drawing, she didn't have the technical knowledge initially. And from what I could tell, having just met a few other teams, that didn't matter. She was an excellent mentor, an
Yeah.
excellent teacher. There are times in the art class where she's saying, "Well, this is what I'm teaching. Like there's an actual thing, a skill that I want you to learn." Um, but then at other times, switching over to mentor, and certainly understanding the do not rescue most of the time kind of approach, and it was just so powerful to me to see somebody who is non-technical, and I'm not sure when it comes to either FIRST or something like a STEM center, that we're getting the word out to adults and potential mentors that you don't need to look like you're from NASA. that mentors are coming with, we're not solving for the technical skill set. Is that right?
Yeah. I think one of the really exciting elements of the STEM Center is the chance to bring multi generational experiences and have students and parents or coaches learn together and to model those experiences
Yeah.
of learning to learn and taking risks and failing forward and failing fast. And um, kids get it, right? If
Yep.
we can start early enough, there's no problem there. The harder part is going to be you and me and the
Hmm.
other adults. And I think it takes an environment where you can shed your preconceptions and, really change your mindset to embrace the experience and the opportunity. And so this kind of community centered space that brings these different elements of learning together through different threads, for me is a really important part of whatever our future model of education looks like. And I
Yeah.
think the answer is there's not going to be one model, right? Like I
Right.
think there's going to be a lot of different approaches, and that's great.
Yeah.
But there's going to need to be some common threads through those, and this community piece and this multi-generational piece is going to be essential, and that's something that's really exciting to see.
I think so. Austin, the tagline, I don't know exactly when it was minted, but Keep Austin Weird is something that's there. And having started my own school a few years ago in Austin and talking to other schools in the area and getting to know people like Terry Sperry at Austin Alt Ed, where she sees the quilt, it's like we're in an era where the experiments are happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no doubt that it's happening all over the country, that we can have a lot of people like, you know what would be cool? It's like this, but like this,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then running all those experiments over time. And I think with society, we're thinking about, okay, there's a sense of urgency now, and that is only accelerating the diversity of experiments that are happening. It's a little bit like the electric car, coming back, right? A whole bunch of small companies starting at once, and then in the end, there's going to be a few, and that's kind of like those common threads. And one of the common threads that I think we both see is intergenerational is the adults being convinced that they're not there as repositories of knowledge. I mean, it's cool if you have a natural teacher and knows a lot about robotics, but there's the marketing of the team, there's the running of the team, logistics, transport. That there's so many things there. Um, the art and creativity. First robotics. I saw quite a few robotics in Houston that had a little bit of personality to them as well.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah, I think one of the things we like to say at first, a lot of people know us, as the program where kids are building robots, and we're using this program for kids to build these robots to do actually pretty sophisticated things, and like really just unbelievable creativity and innovation in these teams. But the reality is that it's completely opposite. We're using robots in that experience to help build the kids.
Yeah.
And so then, that becomes the avenue for that. And your example of the incredible art teacher at Lhasa, who is working with a robotics team, sometimes there can even be an advantage of you're not a professional roboticist, because then you might give all the preconceived answers that may or may not be the path we want to go, but definitely doesn't open up the exploration of, okay, we don't know how to do this, because that's the magic. And that's what we need kids
100%.
to be able to embrace and to learn. And they're going to have to do that over and over again throughout their lives on new technologies and new jobs and new fields. I've got 2 daughters, and, I tell them, like, you're not just going to have multiple jobs, you're going to have multiple careers, right? Like it's that process of critical thinking and learning to learn and perseverance and collaboration that need to be the outcome of these environments and experiences. But it does take intentionality to design the spaces and to design the environments to help make that happen, right? And all of these experiments that are happening in education, these different models, are going to give us some data on what works and what should be common elements. And we also have to recognize that, while all of these kids have limitless potential, they don't have the same opportunities. They don't have limitless opportunity, right? And so as we're developing and designing these experiences, How are we making them accessible for everyone in our community? And we have a chance to be very innovative in building more equitable models too, with technology and with access to spaces, but it has to be at the forefront of the design and something that we're thinking about from the beginning as well.
Yeah, I don't get the sense that we lack physical space in the country. I think we lack some of the creative solutions to figure out how to inspire the adults to justify, hey, you know what? This space is unused. Evening hours, this would be a really great space. And that very often doesn't mean giving up the value of the space financially if it's used in the day as a warehouse or whatever. So I think there's the ability to find the space. Um, it's my perception is a matter of translating to adults who are naturally excellent mentors that this is not a technical thing first, that you don't even have to have a huge interest in robotics and certainly no experience there to come in and work with these students. And if that's where your heart is, this is an organization that's international with, I don't know, how many teams are members now?
So we're serving hundreds of thousands of kids across the
Jeez.
globe
Wow.
over our 30 plus year history. Millions of kids have been
Yeah.
impacted in over 100 countries. And those numbers sound really big, but it's still a small percentage of the
Yeah.
total audience, right? So back to and we have incredible research showing the impact of these programs. And so the question and part of my role at first is going to be like, what are the new innovative models and approaches to help bring these experiences to more kids, and to
Mhm.
recognize that our education model is shifting, needs to shift,
Mhm.
that there's new opportunities to use technology differently, that we need to be thinking about space very differently,
Yeah.
that we need to be thinking about community organizations and partnerships very differently, right?
Mhm.
We have, incredible organizations out there that have built trusting relationships with families and multi-generational. Think about, Boys and Girls Club as an example. And, so how are we taking the vertical expertise of these different organizations and bringing them together in these hubs and these
Yeah.
community centers to help make that happen? Prior to joining first to kind of lead this new innovation group,
Yeah.
I had the honor of leading a learning space in Austin, Thinkery, and we had that model of, we get to bring families in, and that's another example of a third space.
Mhm.
These science centers or museums, children's museums, where we can break down the notion of play and learning and exploring
Mhm.
is just for kids, and model what that looks like. But we can also then figure out how to bring those experiences that can happen in those spaces out into the community.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I was excited to hear about the Austin STEM Center, is using that space not only for the direct experiences that can happen there, but to empower and to develop others who want to deliver those experiences, kind of a hub and spoke out in the community,
Yeah.
and to really drive a larger impact by having
Yeah.
that level of access and expertise. And I
Yeah.
think that type of mindset is going to be really important.
I think that's huge. So we have one first team that is actually in Austin STEM Center. So they're now based there. We view
Shout out to the Howdy Bots.
Howdy Bots. Evan Marchman started in his garage 10 years ago. Yeah. And he is very much looking in. We're very much aligned on it's a regional support center for First Robotics and those programs. And it was beautiful. We're 5 months from actually opening our doors, and that's not stopping us. We're just going in there, and there was a local group that was interested in starting. Hey, we have the interest, and that's all. And then Evan's able to say, "Well, come on in. We're going to get you supported, But that hub and spoke where we can't host 30 teams out of the thing, but we can host the one team that's excited about supporting other teams, and that's how it grows.
And that's something that's unique about First Robotics is this idea of gracious professionalism and coopetition. The great woody flowers, really built into who we are and our ethos. And it's this idea that giving back and helping others have those
Right.
experiences and supporting the broader community is just as important as the knowledge that you're gaining and learning. And when you bring those two together, then you get a chance to make a much more significant impact in you as an individual, because it's different to learn something than to be a leader and to
Yeah.
figure out how to support others, but into growing that impact to others in the community. But you can't do that on your own. You have
Right.
to have the means and the resources and the space and the teams and the mentors, right? Like we all have to kind of come together,
Mm.
and we need conductors to organize the music to play it, kind of beautifully. And that's going to be, I think, the big opportunity of this
Yeah.
space.
It seems like first, I mean, 30 years is a long time, and the numbers you were saying hundreds of thousands of students in 100 countries, right? That's absolutely huge. It seems like maybe hub and spoke is hub and web, right? Because then you see that team that had an interest and supported by Howdy Boss to get going. If there's success there in 3 years' time, that team then is supporting the next team.
That's right.
I I I see countries that can be teams in physically different spots, and a new team spins up, and the documentation and support of the international organization is sufficient, but it gets more powerful exponentially over time as you have your first team in a different country, and then in the same region another team, and then they can start supporting each other. um,
Another critical element is kind of the age based continuum of
yeah.
experiences, right? I think we know from the research that just starting at, okay, if we could get every senior in high school engaged, then everything will be perfect because they're going to go in. And it's like, no, that's way too late.
Yeah.
Not that we shouldn't try at every level, but a lot of students' decisions and perceptions and ideas that they have about who they are in STEM and learning happen much, much earlier.
Yeah.
And so our partnership with Lego Education and First Lego League as early as preschool to start these
Hmm.
types of experiences, and then to have programs that builds, and to be able to have the high school students that are in First Tech Challenge or First Robotics Challenge then help mentor the First Lego League, right? That continuum and that
Yes.
pipeline,
Yeah.
and then having spaces where they can coexist, as the learning then becomes more transferable,
Yeah.
and at that moment of kind of interest, and it sparks that inspiration, what's
Yeah.
happening over there, and I want to understand what that is, and you start to more intuitively get a sense for how things work before you are force fed the math or the science behind it,
Yeah.
and don't understand why you're learning that. You understand why, right? And it
Mhm.
gets applied, which is really interesting.
Yeah. The high school's the right age to start looking up from your projects and your learning to the younger students, right? And then starting to give back and to educate and start to mentor. But you're absolutely right. High school is not the right age to start participating in something like FIRST. That needs to be as early as possible.
Yeah.
If you can get it to middle school, great. But if you can start getting into middle elementary or even sooner, that's that mindset, right? That's
Yeah.
a permission to go out and gain that knowledge on your own because you have an interest for it. And that can be hard to do depending on your situation. But once that fire is lit, it's amazing how somebody who's seeking knowledge and believe that they can get that knowledge um, can change the world around them to be able to be successful getting down that road.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very, very powerful.
Yeah.
Tell me something about the role that you have. First is there's an international organization, is that right? And then a national. How is that structured?
Yeah, so we're a global nonprofit, so we serve hundreds of countries, millions of students, but we only are successful through a network of local partner organizations across the U.S.
Right.
and across the globe. One of those partner organizations here in Texas is First in Texas, and they
Mm-hmm.
do incredible work. I just met with incredible team members out in California who are delivering different experiences needed for that local community. My role is with the larger nonprofit for us to ensure that we're staying on the forefront of innovative new approaches to learning as we have been throughout our 30 plus year history.
Right.
All of the things we're talking about, are there different programs or experiences or models, or how do we create the infrastructure that can scale to make a lot of these realities come to life?
Right.
And so my team incubates these new ideas and these new innovative approaches, and the role that AI is going to play, the role that this after school competition can play in the classroom, the way we can scale to different countries, all of these really essential opportunities that we have to kind of practice our own model of testing and failing and learning and trial, right? All of these little experiments that we're
Yeah.
talking about within First, and the successful ones to then fuse back into our core operations, because we have the proven, trust and ability to be able to scale those as we move forward. So it's a way for us to both continue to deliver the quality experiences that we are, but to figure out how to go from just a smaller percentage of the students that get to benefit from that across the world to a much larger percentage.
Okay. So what I'm hearing you say is you yourself in this position have the feeling that you're allowed to spin off many different experiments and many of them can fail, and that's okay.
If many of them don't fail, then I'm not trying enough. I'm not taking
Right.
enough risks, right? So
Okay.
I just got off of a presentation to our internal team, and I shared that. I was like, yeah, we're gonna decide that a lot of these don't work,
Right.
and that's important, because that's going to help us figure out the ones that do work, or the pieces of several that don't work, how they can come together to be the right solution. So we're going to practice our own entrepreneurial, innovative mindset internally that we're helping students and teams learn throughout our programs to make sure that we are helping lead a new era of learning, playing, an even more impactful role in education, and helping bring these experiences to more students across the globe.
Are there any constraints that you have or areas that you're first starting to explore?
So we're going with a pretty wide aperture
Okay.
to begin with, and then really using a process that I've used throughout my career in innovation teams at National Instruments, at Lego Education, other places, of going through a mapping to our goals and outcomes, to the needs in the marketplace, to our capabilities, to the evolving models, and investing more and more pieces into, we're ready for a pilot here, we're ready for a test venture, in this
Okay.
country as we kind of move forward. We want to do a lot, as we have throughout our history, with partnerships. We know what we do really, really well, and there's a lot of other organizations that do things well. We're so appreciative for leading corporations that are supporting that investment through their technology, through the access to teams. I think about what Qualcomm, for instance, has done to not only bring innovative new technology and insights, but access
Mm-hmm.
to so many different teams. It hasn't happened before, and so we can be this convener of different organizations that have a shared desired outcome, and we need to innovatively think how to connect those pieces together to bring it to fruition.
Are you starting to see at this point that participation in a first team on a resume will sometimes get the attention of a hiring manager.
We do. And so both research on impact, we have the most comprehensive longitudinal study partnership with Brandeis University showing the impact of these experiential hands-on learning programs and the decisions that students are making, our relationship and real endorsement and credibility with four-year traditional universities, two-year technical colleges. We need to understand that there's going to be different pathways to move forward. And I think your question got it right. It's the skills that students are learning to either progress to that next step, but ultimately to be successful, in a job or in a role. And some exciting work we're doing with Pearson around credentialing to kind of show what those skills look like, working with a lot of our, again, the companies that are hiring a lot of these students to understand what are those needs and to help recognize the mapping that will allow students to be successful, to continue to learn, but to apply that foundational baseline and whatever that next step for them is going to be, because it'll be a series of next steps. They'll move and progress into a lot of amazing things, and the world needs it more than ever. We need these students to become the problem solvers to help us take on these grand challenges that we're facing. Think about climate change and rising cases of disease, and this is going to be the type of innovative mindset that we need to unlock that will provide solutions to all of those things.
Yeah, I feel like when you're in that mode and you've really absorbed the first ethos and you're really looking at the world with a high sense of personal agency, a, a patent is nothing more than you're the first person to take two seemingly disparate ideas and putting them together. And if you're looking at an engineer who's 30 years in the field, very often this is the way it's done. This is where we're going. Like something like battery chemistry. Well, it's just this or this. And then somebody comes along, impacted by first, and they go, well, wait, why? Why is our solution set narrow? Have we checked over here?
Right.
And asking that question, those are the ones that end up changing the world, because it's very easy to get siloed. And the longer you do one thing, the harder it is to kind of see the breadth of solutions out there.
That why question is an important one.
Why?
Yeah.
I appreciate your time here, and I'm excited that you're based out of Austin, and I look forward to future conversations.
Thanks for everything you're doing with the Austin STEM Center. It's going to make a huge impact.
Thank you for the amazing 30 years of STEM. I'm seeing the impact.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Cheers.
Thank you.